Hello, my name's James McDonald. They call me Mac. I have the privilege of being Eagan's 5th police chief in its history. This year we're celebrating 50 years of dedicated service to the citizens of Eagan. We're partnering with Eagan Television to work on a documentary to show the residents where we've been and where we're going. So come along with me in the next 20 minutes or so while we take you on a journey.
As we celebrate our 50th anniversary, it may be surprising to know that Eagan was without a formal police department for over a century. When it was established as a township in 1860, public safety was enforced through a constable system, and in 1954, the people of Eagan Township elected one of their last constables, Martin Delorier.
It was just some neighborhood problem, you might call my house, and Marie would take most of the calls there. And of course, she'd have to wait until she saw me to give them to me because we didn't have radios. Land disputes, fence lines, animals running at large, somebody's bull got into the wrong pasture, small things really.
With the arrival of the interstate highway system in the 1950s, Eagan began its transformation from a farm town to a Twin Cities suburb. In the 1960s, Eagan's population more than tripled, ushering in the need for a more advanced policing system. In 1965, Delorier was named the township's first police chief, and the Eagan Police Department was officially born. Delorier immediately started building his squad by hiring 2 part-time police officers, Don Smith and Jay Berthy.
I went over, talked to Martin, filled out an application, and you're going to get a hoot out of this. He interviewed me on the spot, hired me on the spot that day.
In the early days, the 3-man department was responsible for tending to car accidents and patrolling business areas. But one of the trio's main responsibilities was to patrol some of the early roads that were in Eagan, like Pilot Knob and Yankee Doodle.
Yankee Doodle Road, gravel. Lexington Avenue, gravel. Cliff Road, nearly all gravel, a little blacktop. So I mean, talk about, the good old days.
In 1966, just a year after the police department was officially born, Berthy and Smith were appointed as Eagan's first full-time police officers. Therefore, Delorier had to interview and hire a few more part-timers.
I went over to his house and he handed me a gun belt and a uniform and said, put it on and start riding around.
Policies and procedures were far and few between.
I didn't have a manual or anything, so I didn't know a hell of a lot myself.
The young and fledgling department grew rapidly during its first few years, but it was going to have to grow even faster to keep up with the explosive growth that the city of Eagan was about to experience.
In the early days of the Eagan Police Department, there were barely enough officers to keep one squad on the road at all times. Suddenly, the police department faced the challenge of protecting a blossoming city. The further expansion of the interstate system began shifting populations from big cities to smaller suburbs like Eagan.
Some years we were the fastest growing community in the state. So when we set the budget in March and had the budget working, by the time 6 months came and 9 months came, the population had gone up 5,000-6,000.
Officers were hired to maintain the Eagan Police Department's desired ratio of 1 officer for every 1,000 citizens. To help these officers confront new challenges, the PD's equipment needed to evolve from its humble beginnings.
I let them use my old tackle box with a camera, dusting equipment, tourniquet, Band-Aids for first aid, and it was a tackle box.
Along with the need for more technical equipment, the city of Eagan needed to invest in a fleet of vehicles, beginning with the 1965 Ford station wagon.
And we had a stretcher in the back of the station wagon. And if it was a life or death situation, you loaded them up and whoever came by, you put them in the back seat with them and all for the hospital.
We got a hold of a retired school bus. It turned out great. They fit everything inside to run the department at a scene instead of running it from the police department. And it was an excellent thing. We used it quite a bit.
When the police department began, there was no official police headquarters. Police personnel operated from within the old town hall, where the small footprint would later present challenges.
We had 2 little jail cells. We had our dispatch in there, the chief's office, patrol area, evidence area, and the need for a new police department building was very eminent, and that really surfaced to the top very quickly.
By the time the police department moved into Eagan's newest municipal center in the late 70s, the force was growing, and by 1980, it had over 20 officers, including its first female officers, Lori Tripp and Linda Myrie. The new facility gave the Eagan Police Department much-needed room to grow and evolve with the remainder of the city. From its beginnings in the 1960s through the end of the century, the city of Eagan, and subsequently the Eagan PD, saw explosive growth and change. While significant gains were made in those early years, evolving community needs, along with rapidly changing technology, would lead to a modernization of the Eagan Police Department. The turn of the century marked a time of significant change within the police department, and in 1999, Kent Thurkelson was sworn in as Eagan's 4th Chief of Police. He was the first chief to come from outside of the organization and was immediately faced with a public safety crisis, one with thousands of victims, but no criminals.
July of 2000, we had a very significant rainstorm. I believe it was like 11 inches of rain in 3 hours. We had a lot of destruction. We had a lot of public infrastructure threatened. It's not like you go there, process the scene, turn it over to somebody else and go home. Those events impact a police department for days and sometimes weeks.
An even larger challenge loomed a year later when terrorists took down the Twin Towers in New York City on the morning of September 11th, 2001.
We had a public that was understandably anxious. It seemed like New York was a long ways from here, but we're on the the doorstep of the airport, and people were concerned. I remember hearing our officers dispatched to calls for things that 24 hours ago people wouldn't have looked twice at.
These events took place in the dawn of the information age. Cell phones were not only becoming more affordable, but accessible too. The emergence of the internet opened a new realm for people to communicate instantly over long distances. These rapid advancements in technology have improved our livelihoods, but they've also provided criminals with another arena to commit crimes. We had relied on our law enforcement partners to help handle these sorts of threats. But as the prevalence of technology grew, they faced overwhelming demand. Therefore, the police department needed to provide its own officers with the technical training and equipment to meet these modern-day public safety demands. So, in 2008, we established a computer forensics team to help combat these growing problems.
As the demands on the department have grown, the tools that the officers have access to have needed to evolve as well. Gone are the days of Martin Delorier's tackle box. Now our modern squad cars have radars, computers, digital cameras, and other high-tech tools.
My squad car basically is my office. Whether it's a scene to look for a juvenile that's missing, or I need to go to a crime scene where someone may have been murdered, and my squad needs to have all the equipment necessary to handle each of those cases.
But no matter what tools we are using, personal character and a commitment to public service is what defines being an Eagan police officer. It's those characteristics that leave a lasting impact on our community.
Often, an Eagan police officer's compassion, training, and experience are drawn upon during critical incidents and when lives are on the line. Take, for example, Eagan resident Irfan Javed. He took his 3 children fishing on this pier at Fish Lake in 2011.
His 2-year-old son, Ozzy, became intrigued by a passing turtle, reached out for it, and fell in the water.
The moment I saw that, I didn't think anything. I just jumped right after him. And I remember when I was going down in the water, I saw him, he was coming up.
While Good Samaritans pulled Ozzy safely from the water, police rushed to the scene to save an unresponsive Irfan.
I heard the stories, they were like, pulling their belts off and they're running in the water towards the dock and they're throwing their, stuff off, we're ready to jump in.
His head was kind of hanging a little bit in the water and I thought he was dead. There was no life to him whatsoever.
Irfan's body was hoisted up onto the dock, where Eagan officers, including Matt Andre, began resuscitation efforts.
His eyes literally came back to life and he started blinking, started to come to a little bit. We were able to reunite him with his son, and at that point I think he realized, okay, things might be okay. So moments like that make me proud of us coming together and being a team.
They gave a personal touch. They think of their own in the water and they responded like that. Actually, they saved my life. Anything happened after that, I always think about them.
Dramatic stories like Irfan Javed's highlight the impact the department has had on the community and its citizens. But even small gestures can make a big impression.
After I retired, I got a call, and it was a woman that I took the detox 15 to 17 years before I retired, and she tracked me down to thank me for taking her to detox. I thought that was pretty nice.
And then there are critical, sometimes tragic events which require care, compassion, and delicacy. Chief Pat Gagan began Eagan's Police Chaplain Program in 1996 to help the department and its officers in these moments.
Just have no idea how traumatic it is to have to deliver a message that somebody's loved one has passed away. Died usually pretty tragically. And to be able to have a person there that's a professional do that is just so helpful.
I've seen the professionalism and the sensitivity, the humanity, the compassion of the police department in very, very difficult times.
Judging by citywide survey numbers, the department's efforts to serve the community's needs have been successful. The most recent survey gave our department and its staff, both sworn and non-sworn, a 97% satisfaction rating.
Even though their world some days feels a little negative, they're highly regarded in this city, and I think that's probably the most valuable tool we've got as a police department.
But we don't rest on a history of excellent service. Our department continues to strengthen its bond with the community through various programs and activities.
It's things like National Night Out, our 4th of July events, our tours that we do at the police department. I think we have a really good relationship with our community, which I think adds to the support that we get from them.
We see that support in more than just surveys. In 2010, longtime Eagan resident Margot Danner led a group of citizens who wanted to publicly display their appreciation for the men and women who keep our community safe.
And just by interacting with the police and the fire and the veterans and seeing what was going on in other cities, I really thought that it was time for Eagan to do something. Well, it doesn't hurt to try.
Through a state grant and a local fundraising effort, Eagan Tribute Plaza was completed in 2011 under the watchful eye of the Eagan Parks and Recreation Department. The police officer memorial reads, "Men and women dedicating themselves to law enforcement do so to protect us from tyranny, advocate on behalf of the rich and poor, and work tirelessly to seek justice for everyone. While confronting society's dangers on our behalf, may they be shielded from harm, maintain their resolve in the face of adversity, and know their community is proud of them."
Many of the officers who were hired in the city's growth years are nearing retirement. So the Eagan Police Department is in the process of being reborn, and a new generation will soon be writing the next chapter of our history. In its first 50 years, the Eagan Police Department constantly evolved to meet new demands. As we move into the next 50 years, it will be imperative that we continue to monitor trends that could negatively impact the city and its residents. By doing this, we can ensure that our officers are properly trained and equipped to meet the needs and expectations of a changing community.
The changes, the maturation of the community is what's going to be observed. And that's going to happen in two ways, I believe. Not only aging of the population, but changing of the demographics, the mix. And as that happens, then the police department just needs to be aware of those dynamics.
I think if they continue with the humanity and the human spirit that they have when they interact with citizens, that's what's most important.
Through all the changes we've experienced and all the challenges ahead, our focus remains on our mission: arrest offenders, prevent crime, solve problems, and improve the overall quality of life in Eagan. That's what the community expects from us, and that's what we expect from all of our officers.
We look for integrity, honesty. Part of that is, what are they going to do when no one's around?
And the main thing is I was looking for in any of them was honesty and reliability, them two things. And I'm very proud that all the people we hired were that way, or I can them.
The biggest thing that sticks with me is the people. And most of all, I think they just go out there every day and represent the department in the tradition of the Eagan Police Department, which is great service and excellent police work.
As we close the book on our first 50 years of service, it's important to recognize we would not be where we are today without the confidence and support of the public we serve. It's also important to recognize the past and present politicians that served us so well, along with other city staff and the forefathers of our department. When we open the chapter on our next 50 years, it's important to realize that we've made some mistakes along the way. However, the men and women of the Eagan Police Department will continue providing good service now and into the future. And also, it's my sincere hope that all of you see the Eagan Police Department as an asset to this community.
Not only did I have a good staff or good employees, but I had some pretty good counsels, as well as just an excellent administrator, Tom Hedges. Without his support, I don't know where we'd be today.
I just have wonderful memories of being able to work with you and watch how passionate and how responsible the department is to the community. And the community is first.
And we did what we were intended to do, protect and serve, and I think we've done that very well over the years.
Another thing I'm very proud of is the way the department has been continued running. There's nothing to be prouder about than good people, good employees.
I think it's important as we think about our history is to always remember the people that served before us and really built the organization. Their voices and their footsteps are still heard in that building today because of the work they did.